back. Let me double check. We got my audio running. I've got video running. I'm making sure we're streaming. We are back after a, what is it, 5-month hiatus? There's a long story behind it, but we're back. And I'm joined by all my co-hosts. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, you see, y'all got it. This is my team. We got it. All right. So Church AV Pro, we've been away for a while. There's a huge, long story behind it, and we'll get to that eventually. But it's good to be back. And today, because we're back after such a long period of time, we're going to give everybody a chance to go over what they've been doing. Let's just take about 3 minutes, everybody. We'll start with, let's see, who am I going to play favorites? So let's start with Alex, because he loves when I start with him.
Of course, always. What have I been doing? I've been working from home. That's pretty much all I've been doing.
No. Wait. Your time doesn't start until you get on the main screen. So hang on. You're on the main screen. Go ahead.
I don't have anything to hang on to. Yeah, what have I been doing? I've been working from home. I've been working on one kind of creative project that involves technology and using all these AV tools I have at my disposal. Other than that, what I've been doing? I've learned some new software in this period to support a local ministry, and yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to. I'm sure there's other things I forgot, but it'll come up at some point.
All right. So next we're going to go to Corel, and I'm going to wait until Colin corrects something that I didn't do. But now we're going to Corel.
All right. Well, I have been busy, still at work. I go in every day, 4 days a week. And outside of that, I've been still working with our media ministry at the church here. I run the stream out of my house every single week. The team we have produces everything, and we play it out from here. And that includes some events that we do during the weekends, as well as other weekday things as they pop up. And then what else am I doing? Oh, I've been doing some light work here in my studio as time allows, working with different folks. And then also working on some consulting stuff. So I'm sure we'll probably chop that up in a little bit, but there's a lot of questions about where to go and what to do as we're starting to look at this transition back to normalcy, if we want to put it that way.
Excellent. Okay. Now we're going to go to Andrew. He's going to give us his brief 2 minutes about what he's done and what he's doing.
Okay. So what I've been doing from a church perspective, we have a little small country church here. So we still are able to meet in person because there are not that many persons to meet, and we can socially distance pretty easily. And so we've been doing just our regular services with our little AV here. We're not doing, well, I shouldn't say we're not doing any streaming. Our pastor has a central church. He covers more than one church, and they do streaming out of the main church. So in the event that we aren't able to participate here for whatever reason, we can watch their stream on Zoom. In terms of other things that we've been doing since the hiatus, we've been doing a fair amount of podcasting, myself and the main host, and then I've been doing a ton of consulting.
All right. And last, but definitely not least, and there's a reason I put him last, and he's going to let us know what it is I missed. Colin, what have you been doing?
Ooh, it seems like everything and a whole lot of nothing. Church-wise, when it was warm, I think we were probably just wrapping up doing some outdoor church at one of the churches I attend, which is kind of cool. The whole broadcast thing that we had kind of talked about earlier last year, just after the pandemic started. In the church I volunteer at regularly, pretty much everyone's back into the rotation. It's still completely virtual. Some days we're using StreamYard and everyone's virtual, including the AV team. Most days the AV team is there in the sanctuary, but there are essentially 3 guys on the team that were really doing, me excluded, 3 guys on the AV team that were doing the heavy lifting during the pandemic. But they also took some time to pretty much revamp some of the equipment, some of the processes, try some new things like green screening, more pre-recorded content, some pre-recorded children's content. But tell you the truth, I've been really busy just with other things. A pretty significant project I'm working on. So I've been kind of running into church for like AV emergencies, but I've been pretty light on the rotation due to other family issues.
Well, you forgot to tell me what I missed.
What did you miss, Robert Baker?
Prayer. We didn't pray.
I knew that, but I figured you'd get down to it.
Eventually. All right. So, dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to talk, especially to talk about your work. We thank you for bringing all this wonderful knowledge and experience together. And we pray that those who are listening, watching, or who will watch later will receive some sort of blessing and something they can apply on a daily to their own situation. And if they have questions, we're ready to listen. Amen.
Yeah. So have I become that guy, Robert? Because now it recalls, because we met on the weekend and I was that guy. Am I usually that guy? I'm the you haven't prayed guy. Okay.
That's it. That's it.
I try not to get into patterns.
Yeah, but that's a good one. That's a good one. After all, we are the church AV professional
Pray without
forum.
ceasing. It's fine.
Exactly. Especially in our industry. If you don't pray without ceasing, you're just asking for trouble. So I'm going to take a few seconds to talk about what our purpose is. Because of the pandemic, we decided to get together just to talk about our experiences, certain things that we go through, and to share knowledge between us. The whole idea is to have a better community of people together where we can help solve each other's problems. Because I might have experienced something, and then I could pass that information on to the next person, or maybe I have better experience with some equipment than you do, and I can help you progress better instead of you trying to try out every single piece of equipment. So the reason why we're together, and we may have rotating people come in, and if you're watching and you want to join, just hit us up before every other Tuesday that we come on. That's the whole idea. We're supposed to be on twice a month, every other Tuesday, and talk about some of the different things we're experiencing as church AV professionals. So this is a whole community thing. It's not just about who shows up here. And we're more than happy to take information from Facebook. Who's watching Facebook and YouTube to see if there are any questions out there? Because I can't do everything.
I've got the YouTube.
Okay, someone's got you. See, that's how we're going to do it. We're a democracy, one that's actually operating as a democracy.
Wait, I didn't vote for this. No. I'm kidding.
Now we
You're from DC.
Yeah. So the whole idea is for us to talk about things that we're experiencing, even though we're all AV professionals and most of us do AV at our own churches. We're doing it on different levels and with different equipment and with different personnel, with different size churches. So this should be a whole conflagration of ideas. And if I've used that word improperly, I'm sure I'll hear about it on YouTube any second now. So the whole idea is, let's just talk about things we've been experiencing. Today is going to be informal because we haven't met in a couple of months because I moved. And because I moved, none of this equipment was put together until about 3 hours ago. So that's why we couldn't do it on a regular. But now that the equipment is back in place, we can do this on a regular basis. And anybody who wants to host it out of this group, feel free to volunteer. I'm fine with it. Yeah, okay. So
Maybe.
Yeah.
Cicadas.
So let me give you a little bit about what I've been doing in the past couple of months. Our church has been a hybrid. While we're not meeting together, we're doing just about everything live. we went through a brief period where we did go in, a couple of pastors went in to record their sermons, but that's it. Everything else has been relatively live. Music has still been recorded. Sometimes children's story was recorded, but a majority of the sermon has been live. And we've expanded it where it's not just someone preaching and that's it. Someone preaches, but then the pastoral staff has a discussion afterwards, and that's live. So we do have multiple machines set up where we can switch back and forth between the person speaking. So that's what we've been doing hybrid wise. We have done a complete. Who did anything for Easter? Anything special you guys did for Easter?
Based on the way that we usually run our service, it's basically been the same, but I mean, what we're doing is largely pre-tape format at this point.
We took a month and recorded a movie. They literally wrote a play. We went to the field. We were outside for a majority of it. We got all the testing done. We got all the permissions, and we recorded a movie in 4 weeks flat. A movie with 9 scenes. We learned a lot from that experience. I'll say that. We learned a lot. There's something I've been avoiding called time code. I will never avoid it again. Okay, just imagine recording a 3-camera plus separate audio interface and not having any time code. So eventually we're going to have a conversation about time code. I want everybody's experiences with time code. Now, what have you guys been doing? I know you gave your brief overview. Don't put that up. Guess what's out of stock everywhere? Yeah, exactly. It's out of stock everywhere. So there's a 2 to 4 week limit. What Colin was just showing, can you show it again, please?
After you tell him not to show it, you ask him to show it.
Well, that's because he has one and I don't. Okay. See, that is a tentacle sync, which is a dual. Well, you can get it with 2 parts. It is a time code. Yeah, there we go. It's a time code device. Did you just get one or did you get the dual pack?
The other one's at the office.
Okay.
So I have 2.
Yeah, it's a dual pack. There's multiple ways to do time sync. Like I said, we're going to get into it heavily because I need to buy stuff, but I'll leave that for another day. So I gave a brief overview of something. Now we're going to talk about equipment. Has anyone bought anything new recently? Now, Andrew, I know you don't do AV specifically, but the IT that you do is still relevant for churches, especially now with streaming, and people need better streaming equipment, better servers, better internet connections. That's something we can talk about today as well. Today's a free for all, so feel free to jump in anytime. Y'all are sitting there looking at me like I'm going to do all the talking. That's not going to happen.
I mean, that's what we're here for.
No.
Oh, fine.
Well, fine. And Andrew, did you want to kick that off or?
No. I was gonna say that y'all are all taking a break because finally y'all are on a camera and don't have to say something.
Well, all right. I'll jump in first. So, one of the things that we really had to deal with, right? Like I said, we've been running the streaming operation here at my house, and that's consisted of at least 2 computers, if not up to 6, when we first started with this whole thing, because we first started switching on Zoom. So we had multiple computers dealing with like control room, one dealing with the stream, another one with, dealing with like they were the cameras so we could switch shots.
Yeah, that's my setup. Yeah.
And then another one for playback back into the actual Zoom meeting. So when we were running packages or video, prepackaged video, as they put it, we were able to send it back into the call and they could get a reference for where they were, in terms of the video and stuff. Pretty straightforward, but, a little convoluted too, because we had two ATEM minis here, and all of that. Since that, we went to the more of a pre-tape format, we switched over to basically using two computers, right? One for playback of the stuff, and then playing back into my ATEM Mini Pro here. And then I ran that into Livestream Studio and out to our different platforms. But, after they put all that hard work into the video and stuff, we kind of noticed there was a contrast issue. And what that is that the ATEM Mini Pro actually has an issue outputting video through the USB-C port. And, didn't really notice with the whole Zoom, but when you had videos that were more saturated or had a little bit, better color, you'd start to see the video go dark and you're like, that doesn't look good. So
like half a stop or maybe a full stop darker.
Right. So with Colin's help, after talking to him and then doing some research online, I looked at the possibilities and I ended up buying a new little Blackmagic box that now I'm taking the output of the HDMI of the ATEM Mini, running that into Livestream Studio. So I've got myself a Ultra Studio recorder, 3G here that's in the mix. So it takes the HDMI straight out, full fidelity, and right into Livestream Studio, and it's been money ever since. The colors have been accurate towards what we're playing out from the computer, all the way through and out to the end product. I pull up stuff on my phone, and it's looking pristine. The guys that we have been doing a very good job of recording stuff in 4K. Now they're busting it down to 1080. Right. But I mean, the quality of it looks really, really solid. And then, we run the files. We get announcements in because we have that separate. And so we program everything, boom, boom, boom. And then the outro and we're out. And that's usually been the format that we're following for most of our stuff. Now, there have been some things where we do some live work with Zoom still, but we prefer the pre-tape format when we can get there or when we're doing it.
Yeah, we're because we're still doing live. I have the same setup for 4 machines for Zoom plus 1 for streaming. I didn't go through the ATEM. I went ahead. I don't know if people remember from before. I went ahead and went from Wirecast, which we already owned, and then I went over to vMix, which I completely love. The downside is you need a lot of inputs. So I had to get what did I buy from you? I bought something from Colin. What is it? It's a Blackmagic device, the capture card, and I'm forgetting the term for
Duo.
Yeah, or
Duo
one of
2,
the
maybe.
yes, the 4-port one, but it has I can't believe I
switch
forgot
them
the name
around.
of it. Yeah. So we have SDI and HDMI inputs. So that's what we've been using.
Decklink Duo or something.
That's it. Then I ended up building a second streaming machine just because I had extra parts, and that was the thing of the day. So this way I don't have to, I can actually do 3 streams from the house at one time without too much trouble. And that's proved useful too. So ATEM had a problem and you were able to fix it. I think that's the whole purpose. This is exactly what we're talking about as I hit my microphone, is being able to solve problems, reaching out to each other. So who's next?
Oh,
Crickets are bad for business. Y'all can't.
Yes, Andrew, go save us.
Okay, so let me ask a question. How many of you guys are doing multi ISPs just for redundancy or throughput?
I don't, but I use IBM's platform and they're doing multiple ISPs.
Okay.
I am strongly relying on Verizon.
Well, of the players, that's not the bet. That's not the worst bet to make.
Yep.
Right? Of the players, because Robert is doing multi with Verizon and Comcast and and yeah, they have been a little bit more flaky. This Comcast has, but
The opinions expressed by the panelists are their own.
Oh, there goes our sponsorship. Not
Yeah, but that
but
one
yeah,
is
no,
an
that's
albatross.
that's what I've been dealing with on the back end is trying to help regulate the throughput and and load balancing and those kind of items at the firewall level to make sure that the streams will be able to get out and fail over if there are issues and so forth.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about this a bit a couple of days ago, Robert, was at home where I am now, gigabit symmetrical connection, fiber literally straight to my switch, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they brought it right in. It was awesome, right?
Awesome.
Mhm.
So it's really, really, really fast, virtually no latency. It's amazing. Now, at my place of business, the building I own, unfortunately, Verizon won't serve my building with fiber. I'm not exactly sure why, since Verizon has a fiber circuit to my building and for some reason doesn't seem to want to make more money off of having the rest of the tenants in my business park take advantage of that fiber run to our building that they won't let us buy. So we convinced Comcast to come out. A bunch of us pretty much petitioned Comcast, gave them a business case. It was like, look, you'll have X number of subscribers. It was our next best thing. So they brought a fiber line to our business park, and that's what I'm using now is Comcast. However, the asymmetric nature of Comcast is antithetical to streaming.
Yes. Yeah,
Well,
I learned that
we
the
don't-
hard way.
We don't
Well
care
said.
about pulling stuff in that much. We're trying to spit stuff out, right? So, where you can get some business plans that have more symmetric, or you have Metro Ethernet and all that other stuff, they're hideously expensive. So as a small
Yeah.
business and you're streaming, not exactly sure exactly where the streaming thing, some have done it. I mean, some people have made 6-7 figures during the pandemic streaming. So they've brought whatever connection they can
Right.
to their home, to their basement, to their office, whatever. Like I said, at home, it's awesome. I've never had an outage here with Fios. It's just worked great, but it's not a business connection. At work, it's a business connection, but to tell you the truth, in this day and age, it's slow. And for the speeds I want, it's expensive. So our solution has been to pretty much augment with, and it really hasn't been about speed. It's been about just having a
Reliability.
plan B. Reliability
Yep.
is we're using bonded cellular. We have a PepLink modem and an antenna on our roof. And we're leasing, I think, 8 SIM cards from some company in Florida. I can't remember what they're called, but it's a pay-per-use type of SIM card deal. And our third option is Starlink. So
Oh.
we're putting a dish on the roof for Starlink as well. We have a beautiful view of the sky where the Starlink satellites are going to be, but our primary is still, of course, Comcast.
Because
And it has been-
satellite is not fun to stream in.
No.
Well, currently it isn't. In the tests, Starlink has done pretty good because the issue is, of course, satellites are very far away. So you have latency issues and you have throughput issues, especially on the uplink. Right. And that's been a traditional criticism of satellite services.
Right.
But Starlink is designed to kind of countermand that, because instead of, sending, a single microwave back down to Earth to a base station and all that switching, you're essentially put I won't say fiber, because an optical mesh network
Right.
in space. And that should helpfully hope. The tests have shown that, it's pretty fast and the latency is pretty good, but we'll see. The proof is in the pudding. But again, it's not bad for my plan C.
Exactly.
What's the pricing like on that?
It's pretty reasonable. I don't.
Okay.
I think the equipment cost was something like $99 or something for whatever the dish is made out of in the little modem. And then, of course, with any of those things, like your cell phone, the real Oh dear. The real cost is in the subscription,
Right. Right.
right? And that's to be determined on what the tiers are. But if you go to starlink.com, you'll see what they're offering currently.
All right, cool. Alex, any new toys?
I have refrained from purchasing anything, although I have been looking at stuff. I've been looking at getting the new M1 Mac Mini.
Oh,
Just because my laptop that I'm on right now is kind of getting old, and I'm looking at that.
Mhm.
I know it's a new chipset, and you know the infrastructure that they have there is different, but for me, it's low critical. It's not really a critical thing for me to have all of my software running right now. And that's one of the big things. Like I'm not usually an early adopter. I usually let it sit for a while, but none of my actual, I'm not in the business of making business right now. So I don't have to worry about that in terms of what I'm working on. And I have a PC that I built a couple of years ago that's pretty solid. So it's not like I don't have a computer, so I can take a little bit of the risks. I've been looking at that, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I purchased software though. I did get some audio plugins to support one of the projects that I was working on, and I purchased StreamYard and Ecamm. But ironically, I can't run Ecamm right now because I don't have a Mac.
You don't have a Mac.
That's stable enough. So part of the reason why I was going to get the Mac was to use my StreamYard or my Ecamm subscription. Then I'll probably buy Loopback just to support my audio workflow on that. So it's a nice pair. But really, it was kind of like a Black Friday jump in, just see what I could do. But I've been using StreamYard for the young adult ministry that I'm supporting right now. We transitioned from switching in Zoom with an A10 Mini Pro to using StreamYard. It's web-based, so other people other than me can use it and run it. So there's redundancy. That way I don't have to feel burdened. My big push recently is like, get the redundancy and manpower and training, because I'm trying to, plan my retirement. So you got to start early.
but it is a big deal though, isn't it, Alex? I mean, like I told you, we had 3 guys that essentially from March 2020 to, maybe about January of this year, were the ones there every Sabbath doing the heavy lifting. They were doing prayer meeting, they're doing Bible study, they're doing Sabbath school, they're doing divine hour, they're doing youth service, they're doing it all the special music. They were there early to pre-record it. It was really too much. What do you think about the move to cloud-based switching, cloud-based production, cloud-based streaming, where you have a distributed workforce that is working, remotely, but in a common control room in the cloud to put out a program?
I mean, I think for what we're doing for our audience, I mean, our budget is as close to zero as you can get. I ponied up my own cash to get that for the ministry. We finally got a line item, so maybe we'll be able to make those purchases in the future, which I think there's some interesting questions about how you handle the licensing, in terms of IT security and how you have to put in controls and engineered systems to make sure that when I leave, someone else can take it on, but that's another discussion probably. But, I was a little skeptical about the web-based stuff because, if it goes down, if there's a problem, how do you troubleshoot that? Are you dead in the water? It's not like you have, it works for what I need it to do, and it provides capability that's a lot more user-friendly for the people, because we're doing panel discussions, things that youth want to talk about, things that are relevant. We're pulling in panelists, different people every day, and it's one thing to pull them on a Zoom call, but StreamYard gives us a little bit more polish in terms of our presentation for a fairly easy thing. And, for us, I think it's something that's good because the training and the learning curve is just it's not that steep. And you can find all the videos on YouTube and say, hey, everybody's got a video on how to do stuff on StreamYard right now, or Ecamm, or, Ecamm's not web-based, but I think there are definitely advantages. I definitely wouldn't have chose it at the beginning. I was a little skeptical, but now I think it's just a solid option. I can log in with any machine and get access to it, and it's right there. I mean, I've been doing a lot of my graphics in Canva. Like I have I did purchase the Adobe Suite on Black Friday. So I have it. I'm paying, buco bucks for the capability and I'm using it for other things, but I've been doing most of my graphics in Canva because it's web-based. I can get to it anywhere. I have an internet connection. I'm using the free version. I've literally made so many graphics for nothing.
Right.
And, you can't really beat that. The templates are great. Mileage may vary. I think I caution people to just think that they can grab a template and it's going to look amazing. It's not quite that easy. But in terms of putting out a consistent graphic and having a presence that you can see, I mean, I've been using a lot of web-based tools for the ease of access, if nothing else. And the collaboration capability, like I can share those designs with other people and they can edit it if they want to or if they need to.
To your question, Colin, that's something we're starting to explore now in our church, is farming out to at least give the people who've been doing it consistently some weeks off. Now, I worry about quality. I worry about, because we don't do most of our work cloud-based, and trying to figure out how we would do it, since we do so much of it live, how we would do it cloud-based. But to your point, to Alex's point, we do have to plan for our retirement, because the truth is, if I drop dead tomorrow, if any of the people who are doing the work drop dead, they would still function. They would still go on. They may take a short quality hit, or they may just do a workaround. But we can't be so indispensable that we can't take a week off. That's just not smart.
The cloud thing is pretty interesting because this is a challenge that's facing many industries, not just the ones here. The issue is this: people will adapt to the cloud changes, right? The tools that are being put out now will determine people's workflow. To some extent, the tools that you guys are using now did determine your workflow, right? You had an idea in mind, then things do or do not work the way you want, and you make adjustments. Some of it is your creativity, but at the end of the day, you have to bend somewhat to the tools, and people who are less technical will bend more readily because that's what, I need to get a result, and they'll change everything around to work with the tool to get the result. So cloud is a big thing. I'm generally a proponent of it, but I'm also somewhat risk averse, nature of my position and my personality. And the drawback of cloud is that everything is great while it's working.
Mm-hmm.
And when it stops working, it's dead in the water and there's nothing you can do about it. So don't even waste time trying, just wait. There isn't, if you don't plan a contingency in advance to say, here's the backup thing, then there is no backup thing. It's either working or it's not working. And everyone will kind of get used to that. Like people are annoyed with outages when professionals are running things. When they're running things, they just deal, oh, Facebook is down, and then they move on, right? They just deal with it, as opposed to nagging you about why is that picture not showing, and why is the video black, and why is the da-da-da, right? But when they're doing it, it's like, oh, Facebook, right? So that transition is going to keep happening, and I figured there will be skepticism because you guys have been very proficient and with managing things on-prem, or even now having to do them in that kind of hybrid remote, but still physically in somebody's dwelling. But that's going to shift. And you just have to decide whether you care enough about retirement to not let that other part bug you.
Well, who brought this up? I think it was you, Robert, said, yeah, the cloud stuff is great, but what about the quality? That's always my thing. It's funny, I was watching, I won't say whose church it was because that'd just be rude. Watching a StreamYard produced, I think it was Sabbath school or Bible study or something. And I was looking at it and I was thinking to myself, it really shouldn't be this bad, right? Even if they're using cell phones or an app or, an inexpensive webcam or what have you, it really shouldn't be this bad. And so I look at two things, the inputs and the outputs. The inputs, it's really hard to get bad hardware these days. I mean, you'd have to find like a $5 webcam from Guangdong province or something that they were discounting for $2 because the reviews were like half a star.
I have one of those. Just as an aside. Go on.
And you'll notice, like, I mean, the color is kind of strange on my camera right now because I'm not using like the $5,000 PTZ cam, but this, I don't know, $80 webcam that's here on my monitor, right? But it's not horrible, right? There's some things some people are putting out that are horrible, and I don't know how you get there right now with such a wide range of price points for equipment out there. That's one thing. So that's inputs. The outputs, what surprised me is how much some providers, and I won't call names, skimp on the video. They're literally throwing away your bits. I mean, you know, I know, and like that's coming from a cell phone or iPhone or something. It's getting a decent picture, but you can see that they're dumbing down the bandwidth to, quite frankly, I think, save money, right? There's a whole bunch of people using the platform. It's very inexpensive or next to nothing or free. And to compromise, you see really bad video. Somehow and somewhere, I'd like to see kind of like a middle of the road. You're paying an okay amount per month for some kind of web-based service. You get all the bells and whistles, and that's where they get you. You get all these bells and whistles, and you could do this and put the graphics on, etc. But when your video at the end of the day still looks terrible, to me, that's not a great experience.
That's and I think that's partly, well, part of it is just absolute wanting control of the situation at all times, even when it's not controllable. But I think that's one of the downsides. There, quite often people will come and say, hey, why don't we try this? Hey, why are you doing your church service like this? We can try this, we can do this. But knowing what it takes to do it properly is different than knowing how to put it on. That goes back to our example of the play. It reminds me of the play. How long does it usually take to shoot a 1 hour movie? How would you say, or 1 hour, any event? How long does it actually take to shoot a 1 hour event?
At least an hour.
And it's not wrong. If you shoot it all live.
At least an hour is not how long it usually takes. Okay, a non-live, if you're doing a production, how long does it usually take?
A very long time. I mean,
right.
You know, you could spend a whole day on a 30-second clip, right? So,
I mean, if you work in the audio industry, you're talking about a 3-minute song. How many hours go into that to make that sound sonically acceptable?
How many takes?
Exactly. So the question is, can you do it in one take?
Usually no.
Okay.
I'm going to say probably not. I did have to record myself doing something musical, and I definitely did not do it in one take. I kept one take, but it took me 16 takes to get to that one take. And I'm not even happy with that take, but I had to take it.
You had to take it. You see, that's the thing. I think one of the things we were going to talk about before the hiatus was some of the external pressures that we have in doing these things. In a perfect world with the right amount of money, we could literally accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we don't live in a perfect world, and we rarely have enough money. So one of the things I'd love for us to explore moving forward is how to do the best with a proper budget. Now, we have to say proper budget because...
What's a proper budget? You're speaking like Greek to me, man.
No. But you see, there is a limit to what to do good work. Andrew, what's the phrase? Good, fast.
Or
cheap.
Well, for
cheap
me, it would be good, fast, right?
Pick two.
Yeah, pick two.
Right. Good, fast, or cheap.
And quality.
I like to think of it as a multi-dimensional space of many variables where you have time. Sorry, go ahead.
So, you know, to that point, Robert, you know, to me, the biggest things, especially with church production, are time and money. You know, those are the two big things. So, you add to that now distance, right?
Hmm.
And fear. The fear is you're too close to people, and or you haven't cleaned up properly or what have you, and you might get this deadly disease and shuffle off this mortal coil, right? That's a real thing. So I'll give you a concrete example. But maybe 3 weeks ago, recorded a concert, virtually zero budget. Couldn't afford camera people. Didn't really want camera people because of COVID restrictions. Ended up using PTZs. Had 6 cameras, needed 12 angles, so recorded everything twice. Laid down time code, put it back together in post. Money, definite time and money, interwoven concerns because the people doing the concert were for literally all over the US. So you only had a certain amount of time before they had to go back to work. Recorded Saturday night, recorded Sunday morning, and people had to run back, to their day jobs, to what have you, to their families, and hop on a plane. So there wasn't an opportunity for take after take after take after take. Fortunately, they were very professional people, and they really nailed it. They got through something like 12 songs, 2 takes each, with like a full orchestra, right?
What?
Mhm.
Yes, but I'm telling you,
Whoa.
it's something that shouldn't have come together. And I'm hoping I can send you the link so you can see the end result. You'd think it was rehearsed and planned out for no, I got the call like maybe 7 days in advance.
No, that's incredible. That's incredible.
Well, I mean, hey, the thing is these times call for some drastic measures sometimes. I mean, look, for where I work, most people may not realize this, but a game was just released, a Bible-based trivia game, right? The promo that needed to happen, it was decided, hey, we're going to do this about 5 weeks ahead of time. There was no lead. 5 weeks ahead of time. They wanted 33 videos leading up to the day of the release, right? So we had to then put together a schedule in about 3 or 4 days and then start recording these things and editing them and then immediately putting them out. And the exclusive tool we used for all of the interviews for these different things, because there was different Bible characters they did interviews for, and game creator things, or quality control, the idea for how the game came together, devotionals that were done by notable folks. And we had to basically pull them in and say, hey, can you record this? And this was in a period of 7 days that they pulled all that together. The main engine that we use for all of this, StreamYard.
Okay.
Right?
No, go ahead.
Then we had to take all that stuff, edit it all down. And then on top of that, we had an international team working on doing interpretations into Spanish and into Portuguese.
What?
Then they were basically taking the videos that me and the other person were editing down to release as promo and put that out. Right. And if you saw one of the other web tools we're using, because you talk about organization, Monday.com. We were using that exclusively for project management.
Mundane.com.
Monday.
Oh, yes, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing is that every time an interview was done, boom, link there. All right. Video, raw video. Okay. Get that, grab that. Okay. We had this one. We shot 5 interviews back to back, kept StreamYard rolling because you can't stop with it, by the way. If y'all didn't know that, that's a little tidbit. You got to keep it rolling or else you got to start a new session. So we had to then cut out all of the videos, interviews from each one of those, people and do all this. And no real discernible schedule to have time to get it right. You had to do it basically from the first take. And then we had to put it all together. And then we had a successful game launch with a huge amount of promo, and no one probably would ever know, aside from the crew that put this whole thing together, that it came together 5 weeks before the game was released.
How much stress was it? How stressful was it?
Oh, everybody
Intense.
that was involved was stressed out in some kind of way. And this is in addition to regular work volume, by the way.
Okay, so
See,
Alex,
before you
yeah,
ask.
no. I just have to. I have
Okay.
to point this one thing out. Alex, I want you to make a note because I think this is one of the conversations you wanted to have. We have to make a note on whether overcoming all the obstacles is a success or a failure. So remember that topic. We're going to talk about that one week. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
So I was going to say what I expected you guys to say when you were talking about the conditions, budget. You spoke about budget. You spoke about time. I was expecting expectations to be in that list because from my vantage point, it's expectations that create the most problems. And historically, I've had the most success, and that's a very relative term, whenever I've been able to convince the primary visionary, not all of them, but the prime visionary, come with me. Let's go through, let's take one of your ideas and let's go through it. And when they're finished seeing that, oftentimes they have a better appreciation for what goes into getting them there. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we just did this? And they start to be the cheerleader or the person that says, okay, yeah, you want to do those 18 things. How about we cut it down to 6 and see if they can do it in that time? Is that reasonable? It becomes very helpful because I don't think I really ever thought about it until the pandemic hit. And I looked at all of the news, the broadcasting, and the quality that happened with clearly money heavy news agencies. And I thought, oh my goodness, this thing is hard. If their quality degraded that significantly when they switched locations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes back to this question that we always come back to, right? It's quality of the content versus quality of the presentation. I mean, I think if you have trash audio, you can't hear the content, you're dead in the water. So there, as an audio proponent, I have to take that stance. But, I think people will forgive a lot of things. It raises some interesting questions, right? If you don't have the cleanest production, but you have a good message and you can convey that, maybe that's enough for a lot of people. There are different communities that form for different reasons. And frankly, you could have the glossiest, cleanest production, but if you're not saying anything useful, I don't know what kind of impact are you making, right? That's kind of one of the questions that you could always have in the back of your mind, right? The other thing is, one of the things that is interesting is we were talking about metrics of people in the seats before COVID. And then you started talking about metrics of what streaming performance looks like. Well, how many eyes on do I have? How long are they staying? Are they watching our content after the fact? So a lot of our content, we probably get less than 50 people peak on a Saturday, which doesn't necessarily, but our watch value, if you look at the metrics and the statistics over the week, we pick up views in the middle of the week. I mean, I can't explain it. I mean, I can't even say that we've been doing a great job pushing our content, but the people that are loyal to us watch that content and or push it to people, and our views go up in the middle of the week. And that's just one of those things where you're like, in the church context and as a ministry, it's very hard to quantify what your effect and your efficacy is. And, a lot of people, what are the metrics for church? Tithe dollars, baptisms, conversions, testimonies. What have we captured all of that stuff during the pandemic? I don't know. These are just things that I'm constantly kind of drumming up in my mind.
To answer that specific question, the metrics have changed. Initially, it was how many live people are you getting on Sabbath? That's what they want. I want the numbers for the live. Who's getting on live? And the reason why that changed is because people had options.
Mm-hmm.
So they may not get you at 11:30 because there's this church out in California that's just hot. We're going to get them. Well, not at 11:30. That would be 8 o'clock their time. But you get the point. They may not catch you at your regular time. But if you go back and look at your views throughout the week, that becomes a bigger measuring. And what the church leadership had to understand is the day of is not as important anymore as looking at the end of the month to see how you did. And since you can't compare with your other churches in the area, you have to rely on maybe communication back to you, maybe the amount of people who reach out to you during the week. So yeah, those metrics definitely changed. And I don't think everyone, to your point, Alex, I don't think everyone has kept up with the change as opposed to just thinking about how many people are catching me on the day. In fact, I was speaking to someone just the other week and they said Facebook changed, or was it Instagram changed? So you can't even see how many people are looking at you live anymore, that you have to dig deep to get that information. It's not on your main page.
Well,
It
you
might
know,
be Instagram.
I honestly have no idea what the metrics mean. You know, I had little idea of what they meant in a commercial context or in a government context, even less of what they mean in a worship context. Now, I know there are people that have written books about it and, you know, or have studied the analytics. And I mean, there's a few things that you can see and find trends on. Like, I like to see what devices people are on metric, you know, whether they're using PCs or Apples or smartphones or tablets, or, you know, that's kind of interesting to me because I've been streaming long enough to see the shift where it was nearly 100% desktop to majority mobile. And it was interesting the other day, I think it was the thing we did for one of the embassies in DC during the pandemic, was that it skewed heavy desktop, which is the first time I've seen that in a very long time. So that's a very interesting thing to talk about, their demographic. But here's the thing. I mean, we've been seeing this trend across media for a long time. If you look at traditional broadcast, you know, the big thing was, okay, what's your live rating? And anyone who put it on, remember these devices, VCR or now the DVR or what have you, did have like a not as important metric for that. And of course, it was all ad based. So it's like the people who watch it later aren't as important. So we're not going to pay as much for those eyeballs,
Nielsen.
et cetera.
Yeah.
But then this little thing called Netflix happened, right? Where nobody is watching anything at the same time, period. They don't have a live option, right? But they're now the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and they can pretty much dictate, you know, what kind of programming they have. And their subscriber base is very important and worth a lot of money. So I think the value of having people consume content when they want to consume it was something that scared broadcast and still should, but it shouldn't scare the church. Right? If I'm converted, if I find my worship moment the same time as 50 other parishioners, that's great. But if I find it in the still of the night or in the morning, I'm up worrying about something and I see a message and it speaks to my heart, right? It makes me study the word. That view to me is just as important, much more important as those that congregated and, you know, combined fellowship with worship and said, okay, you know, it's kind of more of a communal thing. I think those metrics are very important, that we shouldn't ignore them. And they're very much as important as how many people were there at 11 a.m. on any given Sabbath.
Well, to your point, one of the things, and I know we started out trying to get a pastor on with us to talk because they have a different viewpoint. That's important. And we definitely have to reach out to somebody. But one of the problems that happened was with this new platform, people stopped giving appeals because they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't know, if you give an appeal and someone doesn't see it till midnight, what mechanism do you have when the person reaches out to you? If someone reaches out to you, I need prayer. How are you going to deal with that? If they put it in the chat, I need prayer. Then they started to say, okay, we better have prayer people at least watching the chat to pay attention. But then the pastors still weren't giving appeals. But because there was this halt on baptisms, and that's how we do metrics. How many people did you baptize this year? So there was a halt on baptisms. So there was a halt on appeals, and there was a lot of missed opportunities because we were looking at the metrics all wrong, and we didn't have a mechanism to deal with what we used to do in-house. So what's the answer to that?
Well, you know, some of that is just a matter of confusion, meaning for years we've sent out cards that people can put their name on and send back to the church, right? We send out books and you pull out that in the card. Those things are not guaranteed to show up at the church when someone is at the church. People understand that when they send in their note on a video, or if they write an email to a website, that it may be 24, 48 hours, 72 hours before somebody gets back to them. This is not a strange concept,
Yeah.
right? And so we are making things strange that need not be strange. And we're getting stuck in a particular mode when enough things have changed around us. And mind you, the church has been through this before. There was a big anti-push with radio when it came out. And that's how you see certain people went and HMS Richards and some other folks pushed radio, and it changed everybody's perspective, right? And now, and we see it each time that there's a new mode. I'll admit, it can be awkward. Like there's a difference when I'm giving a Sabbath school class or when I'm recording Sabbath school for a podcast. You know people are going to respond, and it feels funnier when they're not there, but you just have to adjust how you do it. You know, don't wait for the answer. You have to figure out how to move forward. So I think it's a matter of folks understanding what is our ultimate objective. Even if you don't see souls saved, God is still doing some work. You're planting a seed. So if you really can't do anything else but plant the seed and leave, make sure you plant the seed properly. That's it.
I mean, that I'm going to take that opportunity and jump back to the training like conversation, right? When it comes to getting people involved, sometimes you're just not going to see the ripples. Sometimes you're the person that's walking ahead. You will leave. Like you will transition churches. You will move physical locations. The atmosphere will change. Those things will happen, but you can leave a ripple behind you and propagate that wave behind you. And you don't know what that effect is going to look like. And you don't know how you're going to impact people. And that's just something that's the nature of the beast. And sometimes you do it intentionally. And, I'm going to tie this back into our one of our initial thoughts about like the quality hit, right? If people understand ministry, if I say I have a young person, they don't have to be a young person. They could just be a trainee. But let's say, just for the convenient narrative, I have a young person that I'm training. Well, we're going to have a little bit of a quality hit, but I'm going to keep this young person in a ministry, in a media ministry, and they're not going to be out there on the street doing whatever or out in the world doing whatever. And that's fine. For me, okay, our mix is a little muddy. We can fix that. I have a trainee. I'll be behind him, or her, and I will give them the adjustments they need to make. But I'm making a difference in their life. I'm giving them a proper skill set. I'm showing them that I'm interested in their development, and I'm leaving a ripple behind. The interaction looks different, and the metric for that looks different. And I think we just have to be okay with that. I think one of the big things from COVID is like, can we throw out some of the things that we just do because? Can we be a little unconventional? Why do we have to have music for everything? Like, do we have to have music for everything? I'm not trying to attack don't get me wrong. Music is important. As someone who plays music and it's important. I'm just saying, just think about it. Are we willing to deconstruct and get to the point there?
Eating potatoes.
But you see, I think Andrew made that point that it's about expectations. And certain people's expectations did change. I'm fortunate. Our expectations did change once COVID hit. So when we were able to do something radical, just something different out of the box, yeah, we did lose some people. We've been told straight to our face, they're not going to watch our stream because it's not what they're interested in. But that just means they were only coming to church for what they were interested in. And that's not really the nature of church. The nature of church is not just coming for what you're interested in. So these are people, if you change a pastor or you change a music leader, they're not going to come back because they're not interested in it. Right. But if that's our approach to church is how I'm going to be entertained by it, then that's a different pressure on those of us who either work in ministry or those who are in front actively participating in that ministry. And I'm done with it. I'm not, my church days were so stressful because of other people's expectations. and they didn't really have a clue as to what was going on. So once we're able to eliminate that, my church days are much less stressful now, much more enjoyable, because people's expectations are different.
Does that mean you quit?
No, I didn't have to quit. Everything changed.
I mean, there's something to be said about the amount of stress, though, because, when you make a transition, we're talking about those iron men and women that kind of hold down the production. We're talking months. Like, oh, well, who can do
A
it?
year.
Well, these 3 people, right? A
Yeah.
year.
It's
right?
a year.
You have to do something sustainable. It's like people may not necessarily like what it is, but at the same time, buckle up and put your shoes in, put your shoes on and get in the ring here, or we got to do something that's sustainable, because the physical cost and the emotional cost and the mental cost is enormous.
Right.
I mean, you want to talk about treating people like whole beings. Part of the conversation that we're talking about in this dialogue is like legitimately our mental health and our physical health, and finding ways to innovate to keep our sanity and stay alive and keep doing this. And I think that's a big, big thing. I mean, the training aspect is just one of those things in a vehicle to help make this sustainable.
Well,
I
and
think that's
yeah.
that's just what my thoughts are.
And I'm gonna say this too, right? What you ultimately learn from the leadership mantle is that this is not only about the people that you're outreaching to, but it's in reach as well. Because you find what people are there for, and once things are basically tossed to the wayside and you're having to now pick up the pieces, you see how people's engagement was, and how quickly things can fall off. So you have to be able to give them an ability to feel like, hey, you're still valued. We had to kind of narrow the field for what we're doing to get things nice and tight and under control, right? Because there was chaos at the very beginning. We were all trying to survive at the very beginning of this thing. And then we put one foot in the ground, and then the next foot, and then the next foot. And we started building on that foundation until you get to some of these houses that we've built now, to where we're doing what we're doing. And it was on the back of certain people that could make those adjustments. But once they were made, the next piece of it is now bringing up the other people, building them up and encouraging them and bringing them along. It's taken a while. And hey, we don't have all these things answered. I can say that, right here straight. But the thing is now to think about the intentions about how you engage and bring the other folks along, and how you can do it. Because the other side of it is, if the quality is way too high, you're going to want to try to keep it there. But then when you need to bring other people in that can't execute that level, what do you do? Right? So you're going to have to start giving people pieces so that they can actually help and, learn the process, and then try to do their best at it until they can kind of get it. And so, there's that conundrum that goes on here. So, looking at it from the leadership side of things, it's about how engaging we are also with our folks that, would be serving on a regular Sabbath under normal circumstances.
Yeah. Well, our hour has come to a close. I do want to state again, our purpose, our intention is to do this every 2 weeks. It might have different cast members from time to time, but the whole idea is that we get back together every 2 weeks so that we can continue with this dialogue. And one of the things that we can do next week is, we've done this in 2 weeks. We've done this for a year now. We've sort of, like you said, Corel, we have honed ourselves now. And now we're about to go through another change. What is that going to look like? And what are our jobs going to look like in 2 months, when there's now a push to reopen, but we can't reopen the way we were open before? So now, are we ready for that shift? Is the pastoral staffs ready for this shift? Are the members ready for this shift? I've heard from 2 camps already. I can't wait to get back in the building.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm never coming back.
Yeah, but here's the funny part though. The can't wait to get back in the building people don't realize they want people when they get there. They're not going back to the building to be by themselves. So if
Right.
enough of the other camp says, if 50% of the people say, I'm not that interested in doing it, I like what we're doing now, the 50% that goes will be like, I'm not that interested in doing this, right? There's going to be, it's going to take like 4 or 5 months before people figure out what this stuff is going to look like. Hybrid is going to be worse than all there or all not.
Mhm.
I'm not so sure hybrid's possible. Honestly,
It-
the way
it is if somebody figures out and just says, this is what we're going to do from now on.
I'm living that now. My kid's in hybrid school at Beltsville Adventist, and it's
Yeah.
possible, but it's painful.
it is painful. It's painful.
Yep.
It's
I
and it's a
mean-
different pain point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain realities. I mean, certain folks are liking doing like Sabbath school right now, virtually altogether,
Mhm.
getting high participation. Well, what does that look like when we go back into the building? Because I've already been told we need to basically have Zoom rooms going on, so that way we can bring in the people from outside into the Sabbath school classes to participate. So it's like, these are certain things that we're now having to think about and explore in this whole process. So, that's going to take time. It's going to take resources. It's going to take effort. And really, it's going to take guts and determination to do some of this stuff if they really want to do that. But the thing is, at the end of the day, right, are we hitting our mission directive?
That's the question. And that's the question for us in 2 weeks. So thank you all for coming tonight. And thank you all for listening. And when you rewatch this or watch this, be sure to send a note to your friends and family or anybody else who might be interested in joining this type of conversation or rewatching it. Be sure to send a link to as many people as possible. We do live in a society where likes and subscriptions are important. Don't subscribe for my sake. Don't even subscribe for these guys' sake. Subscribe for your own sake and your own sanity as we start to meld into a world that none of us have any experience in, that we're all going to need help to navigate. So until next time, thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Do you have any parting words?
Not unless you want to go, not unless you want to continue
Another
right
hour?
now.
Exactly.
We never did talk about the black magic offerings that came out in the last couple of months.
Oh yeah,
That's fine.
There's just so much equipment. I didn't even talk about the Rode Wireless Goes, and there's just so much equipment.
We'll just put it in this nice little bow. It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.